Sometimes when I'm carving and I get into details, I need very small tools, tiny tools. And you can buy very small tools, meaning the same size as your tool, but the working edge is very small. This one, for example, is 2 millimeters, about a 1/16 of an inch across, tiny thing. But look at this. This is pretty much the same cutting edge, but much, much smaller. This is a Dockyard tool, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about them because I do find them very useful for tiny work. Let's start by talking about the grip. This is a standard length of carving tool held in two hands like this hand pushing, this hand resisting, classic standard carving technique. Now when it comes to a small tool like this, you really can't get your hands on it, so you need a different way of holding. And the way I like to hold it is like a pencil. This is how I hold a pencil, with my thumb and my two fingers like that, and I'm resting these fingers on the wood. So this is resting on the wood and I'm holding it like this. I'm doing a little sort of shunting with my fingers like that. Okay, if I want to do long strokes, then what I'll do is I'll bring this finger in here like this, and I'll pinch the blade between the two fingers like that. See, so you can just push that, and you can use this pivoting action here to get nice curves. You see? That's the sort of way I would hold it, and that's the same for all of them. So nice flexible fingers, not like this, but just something like that. Dockyard make a lot of tools, but I'm just going to pull out the ones I find most useful. So they make a series of gouges. They call them U-shaped gouges, but actually they are not U-shaped. And the ones I'm most interested in is the ones that are actually from about 3 millimeters, that's a bit under 1/8 of an inch, down to 1.5 millimeters, it's about a 32nd. Now what I find most useful about these tools is that they are true number 9 gouges. A number 9 gouge is a semicircle. So these tools are very accurately made, and you can prove this by pushing it down like this, and this is the way I use it in my finger grip, the pushing down like this, and if you rotate it, it's a perfect circle. So you can use this in moulding for picking out the eyes. Look, there's a little bit of the eyes, and so it will produce a perfect round cut, and I think that's a very good thing. And again, you can use it as a gouge like this. So it's just a very useful sort of tool, and it comes right down to this tiny one at 1.5 millimeters, and again it's perfectly true, you know, which a lot of gouges aren't. And again, you can make this very fine cut. Next up would be these V-tools. This is something probably more like 90 degrees and 60. But again, they come right down to, this is a 2 millimeter, 1.5, so very, very fine. And you can use this tool for making very fine lines. Look, really fine little cut. But working it like this very accurately, look, that's really nice cut. So you don't need to worry about the inside bevel. They come nicely sharpened, and all you need to do to keep this going is to strop it. So the little V tool, really nice. Another use I have these tools for is when I'm doing sunken relief, meaning there's a subject and then we have a little outline, a very strong outline around it, and we leave the background untouched. This is called Intaglio, and how we do this is I'm going to do this with a chisel so it'll be straight rather than bent, but you get the point. We make stab cuts along the line like so. Make a second stab cut like, and then we use one of these Dockyard tools or something like this to take away this little waste in here. Now Dockyard make two sorts of tools. This one is a very blunt, I say blunt, a very a steep angled chisel, and they also make a dog leg chisel like this, and both of these are very useful for just picking out that wood in here. So it's been stabbed down, the fibres have been cut, and we can pick it out like this. So you don't need a gouge, you can just use this chisel, or indeed a dog leg chisel like this. So take this out. So these are very fine little chisels for taking that groove out in Intaglio. I would say that this chisel is slightly tapering out, so it's allongé shape. So what we have to do is rub this down a little bit and make sure that's parallel. I think I would do that. Just make that a little bit more parallel so that it doesn't catch on the corners as it goes along. So Intaglio, that's one other use for these small tools. The only gouge that Dockyard make is this sweet little number 9 gouge, which I've already shown you. But what I want is a flatter gouge at this size. And the only thing that Dockyard are making that I could use is this chisel, which is one-sided chisel, flat, and a steep bevel on the other side. And that's what I convert into a flattish gouge. Now if we use the tool upside down, like this, or even this way, you can see that the corners always dig in. That's the nature of a chisel. The corners will dig in. Whereas with a gouge, the corners are clear of the wood and in the air. So what we have to do is put a bit of a curve in this chisel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hollow this flat bevel, and that's going to be the flat side. Right? That's going to be the inside bevel. That's going to be that shape. And then I'm going to match it by taking away this heel and this wood and rounding this over to match the outside bevel. And between the two, I should have a gouge in which the corners slightly lift above the surface, and I've got a very flat gouge that I can use for some detail. The best way I find to create this inside shape, the curve, is to take a slipstone, hold it packed in a bench vise like this. So I've got the curve uppermost, and then rub the inside very carefully like this. So I'm using my fingers as a guide to keep it in the middle, and I'm going to rub that backwards and forwards like that. So this is a coarse stone. You could use a fine stone, of course, but the coarse one is good for this stage, which is the shaping. So I work that backwards and forwards, and looking at my scratches until I feel I've got a curve, and I can look end on and see what's happening. It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much. So we just work that very carefully. We don't want to take the corners off, to keep the corners. And what you'll find is that you'll feel a sort of little burr happening here, a little wire edge. That's all right, that's bound to happen as we take this wood off, so the metal off the middle. So we do this one first, like that, until we feel that's right, and then we swap to the bench stone. Let me do that. So from the inside bevel, once I've got that, well, I say inside bevel, it's more the inside shape in this case. Once I've got that about right, I go to a coarse bench stone like this, and holding it like this, I create this cutting angle here, and I go backwards and forwards like this, keeping that same angle. Now what's going to happen is I'm going to start removing metal at the heel, and that's gradually going to creep up to the cutting edge, and when I get there, I'm going to stop. It doesn't take too long because it's a very small tool. Once you've got the outside bevel and the inside bevel created, it's still not sharp, and we need to go to the fine stones. You will find that the bevel on the outside has been drawn right back, and that's correct. So you get, either you can put your stone in the vise again and go backwards and forwards, or you can use it as in the normal way in your hand like this, and this curve matches this curve, and between the two we come to a sharp edge. So it's like this, and then it's like this. We don't really need too much of an inside bevel, but what we do need to get is this slight curve so that we can cut without the corners sticking up. So as you come to a finish, get a piece of wood and just check that is working. Finally, you want to give the gouge a nice strop. So keeping that low cutting angle, slightly turning the tool, outside bevel, inside bevel, like so. So you would strop it as you go along as normally, wipe it. And then what we should find is that as we cut, we can slice the surface like an ordinary gouge, you see, without those corners digging in. So this is a great tool now for very fine detail finishing, where you just need to get in and just clean up a surface like that. I hope you find this video useful. These tools are very specific. They are for fine detail work, and I do find them very useful. That's why I want you to know about them. I'll put a link or two below this video so you can check them out further.